And then it's been a while since I've been in front of a sewing machine, but this is your Sew What Seamstress, and today I'm using a modern sewing machine. Oh my gosh, I'm using a modern sewing machine. She doesn't do that. This is vintage. Well, I didn't know I had this one. I have a collection. There's several in this room, and I don't particularly care for Singer sewing machines for a couple of different reasons. Because the ones that I've had, they weren't real user friendly. And then I found this in my sewing room, from what I can gather with the serial number and stuff like that. So it's after 1990, and um, it's actually a good machine. Um, I actually enjoy this sewing machine, believe it or not. I remembered it when I realized, oh yeah, this is the extra sewing machine I used when I was doing my son's wedding stuff. That's how I remember it. So this is the Singer 2639. It's called a protege, I believe. I think that's the name of it, the technical term of it. Let me see. I had it here because I was looking at it online. Yeah, it's a protege. It says it has 80 stitches. So I guess if you add all those up, it comes to 80. I would never use 80 stitches. And I typically steer away from machines that have more than 37 or 40. But who knows, I may have these stitches on this machine or I may not. That's the other thing when you're picking out a sewing machine. If you know you're not going to get real fancy with it, don't get a fancy machine. Just because it's the newest and latest and greatest doesn't mean that you're actually going to use it for what it says it can do. That's what I have found out about myself. I don't always use all the fancy stitches, so I have some just straight, and that's probably why I like the vintage, because I do straight and zigzags predominantly. And the only other time is when I'm doing for customers that I have, I'll get out the serger and do that. Well, I have this little project, and this is what this video is about. As far as portability, it's not real heavy in metal. I have got a couple that I'm going to have to part ways with, and I'm not happy because I really want to keep them, but I'm not going to use 6 different sewing machines at one time. So I'm going to go over how to thread this machine. And the young lady that this belongs to, it's really cute. It's got the little Vogue, little tutu dress thing on the front. Isn't that adorable? But it's too big on her. So we're going to do some magic on this little dress, and we're going to get fitter. And it'll look like it was supposed to be made that way when we get done with it. So first, the sewing machine. Singer 2639. Very basic, really easy to thread. One of the great features of this is you can use a double needle. And if you've never seen a double needle, and I have them out here. What do I do with them? I have them out here. But anyway, there they are. See, I get all this. I've got so many things going on. But I got these online, and I think I got them on Amazon, and they come in a set of, I think it's 10 or 12. At least that's how I got them. And inside each little packet, you have 3 different kinds of double needles with different widths. So you have one where the stitches are real close together, 1/8 of an inch. I think it's a 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, and then a 1/4 inch. Now the 1/4 inch is the one that you would use to do that goldenrod thread on top of your denim jeans. They look like your store-bought jeans, so it has the gold against the blue. That's what the one you use. This machine has 2 thread spool pins. You have one on the back, which you can tilt that up there, and then you have one on top. The great thing about a sewing machine that's like this for you guys that are beginners is you can, if you have 2 rolls, listen to me, 2 spools of the same thread, you use one for stitching your project and another one, put it here on standby. And the reason why I said put it here on standby, because that way you can go ahead and wind a bobbin when you run out without having to unthread your machine. Well, I haven't started this project yet, so I'm using the back thread pin to do the bobbin winding. So to do a bobbin winding on this machine, I'm going to tilt it so you can actually see, because I can do that. On the back is where the thread, or where I have the thread, right here. And I took the thread to the left of the tension wheel, I call this for bobbin threading, and then to the right, and then bring it across, winds it around that bobbin a couple times, snap it in place, and then you're not going to believe this. A lot of machines, you have to pull the hand wheel out or push a button in or do something to make sure that the needle doesn't go up and down. It's this attachment right here. When you put that bobbin in there and you snap it, it automatically disengages your needle. So you can go ahead and thread the bobbin. And that's what I'm going to do because I need this white thread on here. Get it started. And it's nice and quiet. This machine is actually pretty quiet. For those of you who are kind of sensitive hearing-wise when you're sewing, it's a good model for that. Now, I acquired this secondhand. It just needed some love, a little bit of oil, a little bit of grease inside. And when you get to the end, it slows down. And then it stops. You'll see the bobbin actually stop. So disengage it, take it off, cut your thread. Now you can put the bobbin in the machine. Now, to thread this machine, we'll put the bobbin in the last before we get free online. Downloaded it because I didn't have the manual when I bought this. There is a thread guide. I'm going to try to show you as much of this as possible. So on the back side here, you have actually the only thread guide you have is this little guy right here. It's on the side. So you put the thread up under there. And then you come across this way through this. You see the cutout? See, there's a cutout right there to the front. And you take it, little dial, and has a lovely little word that says auto. So when you first get it, it's going to be set on auto. Leave it. Don't mess with it. Don't change your tension ever on your thread unless you change fabric thicknesses. Plastic piece in the front. Let me turn this around this way just a little bit for you. And come up. You come up to the thread bar. And you go to the side, and it just in front of your needle. I'm going to move my hand here so you can see. This machine has an automatic needle threader. It's not automatic. You actually have to move it. It doesn't do it by itself. So there's a move the camera, but last time I moved the camera, I lost my feed. So I got some. So there's a thread. Needle has to be in its highest position to do this. To use any needle, automatic needle threading attachment, that needle has to be all the way in the highest position. So you turn, and this one actually happens to be in that position. You pull, my hand's in the way, but let me see if I can do it this way. I'm going to pull it down this way, and you push it to the back. You pull it down, push it to the back. Then you take the thread, and you're going to go under. Actually, I'm thinking backwards. You go over to where that little hook is. Oh, it's going to stay in place for me. Where this little hook is against the needle. You just kind of pull it back, rub it up against the needle, and that way that needle threader will grab it, and you see how it pulled it to the back with a loop. So now this is actually threaded. I just need to pull the rest of it back there. Now this is a huge long tail, which I would cut off. Now we have our bobbin. Now to put the bobbin in, there's a little lever here. You open the door to pop it out. Sometimes they pop right up. Sometimes you have to give them a little nudge with your fingernail. Pop that out. And since this is a top load bobbin, the thread on the bobbin is winding this way. In other words, the tail is going to unwind counterclockwise. So I'm going to put that in there. Just drop it in. And in top, there's a notch. There's a little notch. Oops, I'm going to lose that door. There's a little notch. Actually, there's two. And you grab the thread, you take it through that first notch and around the outside to the back corner. Take it to the back corner so that when you turn the needle to grab it, to make sure the timing is on point, you want to make sure that the thread is not going to get snug on anything. And in that little rounded off corner, it's able to slide right out. So put the door back on. Now I'm going to hold on to my needle thread, turn the wheel towards myself. And this is how you check to make sure your timing is good, because that thread has got to grab that bobbin thread. So you turn it until it goes back up to its highest position again. And I can already see, that's why I love these clear glass tops on these machines. You can see it actually grab the thread. And then you pull it up. That pulls up your bobbin thread. Now you're ready to get started, basically. Always keep about 4 or 5 inches of thread, pulled out. This is a universal zigzag and also straight foot on this machine that I have. And it's a plastic, which is another help to take them out and redo them. But that's how you thread the Singer 2639. And it has a lot of great features on it. It has, to make a straight stitch, you've got this bar you can have, and I love pictures. It has pictures all over it. The pictures of it, if you have it all the way to the left, the needle's in the center, which it is. And then it goes from straight to zigzag. And then you can have the needle to the far left, which if you're doing a big zigzag, you're going to want your needle all the way to the left. And it also shows you in a little picture above it, it shows double needles, 2 little needles, and it shows a buttonholer. This does a buttonholer. And so what's really cool about it is it has a little window on each line of stitches. So right now, it's just there, depending on what settings I have it on. I could do that. I could do it straight. I could do a double zigzag if I wanted to. Double zigzags are really cool as far as a decorative stitch. I've done them before. They're fun. So for a straight stitch on the Singer 2639, you want it all the way to the left. And this big knob over here, this guy here, this one right here, this is what changes those stitch designs for you by you turning it. You turn it to the right, or you turn it to the left. You turn it to the left to make it go across this way. When you turn it to the right, it'll only go so far, and then it stops. That's the buttonhole setting right here. So then you'll see it's color-coded in that there's some stitches in white. There are some that are in this goldenrod color. And then there's the black color. Those are the fancier kind of stitches. So for a straight stitch, for you guys that are beginners and just want to get your feet wet with this one, and the manual's only 51 pages, so that's, that's excellent. You put this all the way to the left, and this little knob here is your stitch width. This is your length. I'm sorry, this is width, this is length. So the length on this, if you have this on width, this is basically 0. Other machines will say 0 for the width. Then this is going to be the length. So it's going to be either a small straight stitch or a longer, wider straight stitch. So this little knob goes all the way 0. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if you go backwards from there, keep turning it toward yourself on this one, it goes into the 2 color codes for the decorative stitches right here, the red and the black. And that determines how long you want those stitches. So what I would do is I would turn this to one of those fancy stitches. I'm not doing that today. So, and that's the hand wheel. So I would do it, you change the stitches by this way. And then go here. And you can have long, with average, and then the S is for stretch stitch. So what happens is these fancy stitches end up doing double stitching for stretching. So for using on a striper. See, I had to refresh myself on this machine because I hadn't used it in a while. because that's not since October. But I remembered I liked it. I just forgot I had it. So now I've got it set up for my straight stitch all the way to the left. I turn the big dial down here to the double needle straight stitch. And I've got this on 0 because when you're doing, I'm sorry, not 0. I need to put on, I need to put on 4. That's a satin stitch. So I turned it to 4 here, but the width is 0. This means 0. If you want, you can always do, like I have a P-touch and I'll put a little labels. I'll put like 0 to say, or I'll put on here stitch width or stitch length or whatever. So this would be length, this would be width. So actually I'm going to label this for one of my students because I have a sewing student that wants to learn on a machine that he wants to purchase. So I have several different kinds for him to try out. That's always cool. If you can go into a store and like test drive a sewing machine before you decide, do it. If they let you do it. You can't do that at Walmart, but you can do it at Joann's, I believe. And others, like craft stores that actually sell sewing machines. Joann's is our area. Okay, so I have my machine all set up. Now, the dress. When you are going to make a dress that needs to be fitted, if it's for yourself, you might need another set of hands. But if you have a dressmaker form like I have behind me here, measurements, put the garment on it, and then put it on it inside out. Now, I did not have this set up to the young lady's measurements because I didn't have her measurements at the time. So I put it on her body and I pinned it while it was on her, hence the pin outside. I call these crescent moon darts. I don't know if that's the proper name for them. That's what I call them. The reason why I use crescent-shaped darts is because it adds shape, especially in a dress or in a shirt or any kind of flowy kind of top, and you don't want it flowing all over the place, and it makes it look like you're wearing a bag. So what I did in this case was I put the darts on the outside. I pinned it while it was on her body. First start out with the side seams. So I did those. You just pin it to where it's like, okay, now I don't see so much of my armpit. So you do it that way. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can transfer it from the outside to the inside. You can use tailor tacks if you like. You can do like long basting stitches and then snip them and then turn it, right side in and then go ahead and stitch along there. I typically, because I've done this so long, I'm eyeballing it. But for the sake of teaching, I do not have a marking pen because I let my student loan it. I loaned it out. Okay, so we're going to do, we're just going to pretend like I'm okay. There are marking pens that are washable. They're water soluble. This one comes out white, which I got the wrong one out here. There's also purple, pink, blue. There's all different kinds of water soluble marking pens. So after you've pinned under the arm, and I do the armhole one first, is you want to pin it where you needed it to be. And then what you're doing, you're going to gradually, in like a dart fashion, go down towards the waistline. So you gradually start from this point where you want it the most snug down to this point where you don't need it as snug. Because the waistline, you don't want to, interfere with the waistline on this. So what I do is I'll pinch it from the inside, and then I'll take it, turn it to the inside, and put that pin back there in that same spot. And you want to do it, if it's a short amount of distance, just do like 3 pins. You don't need to do any more than that. And so this is basically a side dart is what I'm going to be doing to this. It's a side dart. And mark that on the other side. Right there. I don't remember if this is actually, what you call it? What am I trying to say? Lined. I don't know if this is actually lined. So I'll take that like that. Follow that back, because that's my spot. Take a peek at this and see if it's lined at all. That's another thing you have to put into consideration. If it's lined, then you have to deal with the lining as well. So we're going to go. Now, you can also, once you've pinned it, just measure. Like my, there it is. To show you conversely on the other side, since I do have to do the other side. Okay, where I have it pinned, where the pin goes in, is that's where it needs to be. That's where it's going to be the seam line, or the the seam. So you can take your measuring tape down to the waistline gradually, and so I can take this out. I don't have to mark it, but you can take the marking pen and mark it on the outside. Just match them up on the inside. So this is basically what I'm doing. I've marked an inch there. It's going to stop right here, which is right at the waistline. And when I go to turn it wrongs out, then I'm just going to make sure that my darts are both the exact same length. So I'm going to take this pin out. I already know it's got to go in an inch right here. So I'm going to turn that in to the inside. With your edges even, you want to pin it. Put the pin in. Always measure twice. You measure 3 times. And I'm going to measure an inch out because that's where the pin goes in. And that's exactly where that seam's going to be. So where I've got that pin stuck in there to where I folded it to the inside, that's exactly an inch. That's where I want it. Now, I'm going to turn the whole thing inside out for these 2 parts. So I can see if this is actually, I can't remember if this is lined or not. I want to say it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. So that makes a little bit difference. And this outer fabric that's one of the marking pens. I thought this thing had a stain in it. I just remembered I marked the hem. That's the hem line that I marked with a purple, and that will be the hem mark. Now that I've rediscovered this has a lining, what I'm going to have to do is do these separate. So I already know I got to start with an inch up here. Okay. And to do that, so basically, when you make something lined, you're making 2 of the same thing. So you're making 2 dresses. The lining is a dress, and the outside is a dress. It's just the inner dress, the lining part, is to give it more body, maybe to make it less see-through or whatever. So, and this is to keep it cool, because the outer fabric is a man-made material, and it can tend to be. So I'm turning this whole thing inside out. This actually makes it easier, believe it or not. Now, because it's lined, all I need to do is, thing to do. Technically, people would say that's the right way to do it. Yeah, but it takes longer, and I like my shortcut. And it never has given me a problem doing it this way. So I've unfolded it like this. Now what I'm going to do, and this is going to be kind of like a 2 darts at one time. That's basically what I'm going to do. Where that 1 inch needed to be, as long as you have that seam, fold it up the way it is underneath. And this is where the lining and the dress meet each other. Put your pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go gradually 1 inch from here to this side, which is the lining side. And then from that same 1 inch from there to the same length on the outer dress. So that when I fold it back out, it'll already be Done. I don't have to take it apart to do it and then put it back together. That, to me, that's defeating the purpose. You do want to be careful about any other dart that might be lying alongside of it. So now that I've discovered the lining part, and this is actually going to look better this way. I mean, it's not going to have any adverse effect on it. So I've got to find out where my end point is, and the way I do that, I didn't make it. Not originally. Anyway, so I've got one on this side, one on this side. This one ends here. So the measurement I'm going to do, here's the 1 inch, this is the outside, and it's going to end here. So how far down do I have to go? That's my next question. So that way, when I stitch the lining and the outer dress part with the taking in of the sides, I just use the inches. And so from the top to where it ends, it's 4 inches. Makes it sound, you can see how it's going to fall. So I opened it out, right? So for this side seam, and I put that pin at 1 inch. The tricky part is making sure it lays flat. It's not difficult. If you pinch the 2 layers flat, and then you stitch from that point, and then stitch back, it's going to lay perfect. So we're going to do 1 inch here. We're going to come down. I'm going to go down that side seam for the lining and for the outer dress part, down 4 inches. So we're going to measure 4 inches. Down there. And that's where I want to end up. I'm going to use these big colorful pins just so they can see. Like that. I'm going to put another one in the middle just so I don't get any funny gathers. There is a dart from the front that's all wrinkled. It's wrinkled all over across there. And I want to make sure that's laying flat. So I'm definitely putting a pin in there. And that's about midway, so it works for the best. Now you're wondering, how do you make sure that you don't go way out? This is where your pins are imperative. When you put this under your machine, you're starting at that 1 inch mark for the lining to go down, where you have entered that pin, that 1 inch mark, and you go down the 4 inches to the bottom. Okay. Line up the entryway of the top pin with the bottom pin in your machine. So I'm going to pin the other side of it, and then we're actually going to do this thing. Okay. So I've got my 1 inch mark there. And the pin is not parallel, so I want it parallel. And then I got to go down 4 inches on this side from that seam where the 2 are connected. That's where you're measuring the 4 inches from, where the lining and the dress are connected. That's the 4 inches down that you're measuring. I mean, this may sound really technical, but it's really super easy, to be honest, because you don't have to take it apart. You're not taking anything apart. You're actually just restitching something that needed it anyway. So starting from, I mean, you can pin, you can start from the lining side first, or do the front of the dress second, or vice versa. Well, maybe in a lefty, I do the opposite of what a right-handed person would do anyway. So I just want to make sure that that dart on the other side is laying flat, and it is. So what I meant by lining up your pin entry is for this side of the dress, it's basically, there's a pin in there that doesn't belong in there. Get that little guy out of there. There we go. Because it's making a wrinkle. I don't like the wrinkles. Okay, so you start. Now, this is the original seam. It goes up to the 1 inch underarm. So I'm basically starting from below and going towards it. So I'm going to put my needle right at that spot, put it down in the fabric in that spot, and then make sure this is all laying flat. And I'm going to stitch up to that 1-inch entry right up under the arm. Putting in a couple little lock-in stitches in the beginning, 2 stitches out, 2 or 3. And I've lined up. Raise the foot a little bit because it gets a little thick in that spot. Come on. Okay. Now I'm going to stop. And then because now the angle is off for doing the other side, I'm going to have my needle all the way down, lift the presser foot up, make it nice and flat under there. I'm going to go back down to the other side. Put the presser foot back down, and then go down the lining. The same way I just did, only now it's the lining that I'm stitching. And make sure that my end, where I end up, is a straight line. Okay. Take it up. Where'd my magnet go? Here somewhere. Anyway, so I'm going to take that out. Make sure I got my little 4 or 5 inch tail of thread. Snip it close. Try to trim your ends as you go. Don't wait until you're finished the whole project, and then I got this little container that has pins in it. These threads there. And where'd it go? Okay. And all right. So now I'm going to turn it, double check it. I'm going to turn it from right side out. So I can see the design, the little girl with the dress on the front was on there. So this is my new underarm. And if you can see, so what I've done was I've actually stitched the lining, took the lining in, took the outside in without taking it apart. Now, that is the shortcut way. Other people would tell you need to take the lining and the dress apart under the arm, fix it, and put it all back together. You can, but you don't need to. That's what I'm trying to prove. You don't need to. And it has the same result. Okay. So now all I have to do is the other side, same way. Separate the 2 layers. Like I did on that one side. Make sure I don't lose my place here. Underarm. Put darts where they didn't need to go before. Yeah, that's no fun. And so now I'm on the other side. And go from 1 inch top. Now the 1 inch was from the outside of the cut material. I'm just going to double check that. From there to there. Beautiful. And then from there down at 4 inches. And it's going to end here, right there. It ends at the 4 inches at the seam. And I'm going to put one in the middle, just kind of like as a guide to make sure that I'm headed the right direction. And then do that for the lining as well. And this way. And just like that. Make sure that's an inch. Yes, it is. Right there. And da, 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 da. And then down 4 inches this way from that seam, underarm seam. Oops, wrong side. I don't know why I tend to pick up the wrong edge. Okay, let's do this thing. From there, down. So there. All right, put a pin there. And then one halfway up. Sure that that dart is flat down. Yeah, I forgot to put a pin in it. So I don't want it to get curled up underneath, because that would really feel uncomfortable. Okay, so now I'm going to line up that bottom pin, the point of the inverted kind of dart thing, like that. And I'm going to go all the way up the lining side first, or on the other side it was the opposite. And dun, dun, dun. Here, go into the top pin. So I've got my nice straight line, but when it's, held up, it's going to be on an angle. Just like this. And it's a little thick there. Okay. And you have to press your foot up, and you want it from there to go down the side to the other point. And then we just have the outside darts to do. Ta-da! As long as you keep your pins lined up, it's going to come out where it's supposed to. This is the reverse button, by the way. I keep going to the other side, but that is to change it to stretch stitch. That's the stretch stitch lever. So take this out. Like that. Thread always to the back. This little guy's back in their little container. And like this. And to check it, turn it right side out. Right side out, not wrong side out. Right side out. And there you have the other armhole. Perfect. It's perfectly smoothed out parts. The reason why I came up with the so it doesn't look like someone just put this little cute bag over her head. And the way you do that is you go to the back of the dress and you find the center of the neck. And from there, you want to go have 2 darts to balance it out on the back from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. So under the left shoulder blade, you start, and then you pin it for the person's shape. You pin it, then you turn it just like I did with the sides. You're going to turn it to the inside and actually stitch those. These darts, I would highly suggest using the marking pen to do. Mark it on the outside. That way when you turn it to the inside, you can see it through the fabric, especially if it's a color like this. And that way your crescent dart, that's what I call it, will be exactly where it's supposed to be. So for this, since I don't have a marking pen out here that's not permanent, like a silly person, I'm going to do, I mean, I could color tack it, but I didn't realize this had a lining until just now. And that's my error. So I'm going to put a pin up where the dart starts and then where it needs to end. And this is going to be a half moon, kind of literally a crescent moon shape. So I know that it has to end right at just above the hip area. And that's where I've got my curve marked on this. So I'm going to put another pin at the bottom where it's going to end. So just like the side darts, a beginning and an end, just like this. And that way I can take the ones in the center out, but not exactly. I want to make sure that I do this indentation right. So I need to measure that indentation in the center. So here's the top, here's the bottom. What I typically do is I'll fold it in half this way, just so I can find the center. And that's the one I need to make sure I'm marked. So I'm taking a pin here. Maybe this is kind of advanced, but I'm putting a pin just in the outside layer. Okay. And that's where those two need to curve into. So whatever this measurement is here, and we're going to measure that, where that curves in, actually that's where it was, because I put the pins in vertically to actually be snug on her body, is I'm going to measure that, and I bet you. Yep, that's 3/4 of an inch. So in the center is going to be 3/4 of an inch. So at this point, you could literally take because I'm going to sew or stitch over, and this is what I'm doing. Here's my beginning spot. So the point is going to be here, and it's going to come out to that needle or that pin and come across and come down and slowly curve back to this end point. Okay. So with your fabric marking pen, let me show you this. You lay it out, and your starting pin, that's going to be the point. And these are the pins that you pinned in on the outside. Take your water-soluble pen. They do have pencils that wash out also. And you're going to curve it out gradually and then curve it back in. So now I can take this, turn it inside out, pin along that long, and wherever the pin goes in, that's where I want my needle to come to. In other words, the needle is going to go in along that line. You can use tracing paper if you like. Sometimes it washes out, sometimes it doesn't wash. And I'm going to measure the spot this way. My quarter point. Okay. Smoother line, seam, or dart, whatever you want to call it. And from there to there is, it's 3/4 as well. So we're just going to gradually go 3/4 to 3/4. Go to this side. You can see this part is going to be a little bit longer, this part of the dart. Go to here. And this one you want to go about a half. So from here, you're going to go down to here. So it's going to look, we've got it curving in. So now that I know that, I can turn this wrong side out. With that. I know this may seem usually my results are always perfect. I mean, they always come out when I one of these, I call them crafty Sue moves. So and you want to measure the length of this dart. I just took where did I put that pin? Here. So the measurement I didn't take, good thing I marked it with that pencil, is this length from the top to the bottom, just like on the underarm. So let's measure how long this crescent moon thing is going to be. And it's 8 inches. I love it when it's like easy numbers. So it's 8 inches, 3/4 in the center. One, I need to go to the back side and mark the lining one. I've got it in the outer one, so I'm going to do the lining. Beginning at the top of the lining. Outside. Start here. My beginning and my end, I'm good. So take this one out. That one in there. And take them out. You can see on the inside, I can. Let me go this way. Right. And just like this. Just like that. That's the other one, isn't it? I think it is. That's the other dart. I believe so. It's one on the opposite side. Yeah. So we're doing this one. Uh-huh. Now some, it's just because of where it is. So this guy is right here. I think I forgot to take a pin out on the outside. Feels like it. Oh, I'm sorry. I got it twisted. Oh no. There you are. You are getting that stinker. Gotta watch the little tutu girl. Get her caught up in this mess. All right. What do you think you're doing? So that's this one, and that's that one. Now I've got them separate. All right. Ta-da. So, and I know it's going to come down 8 inches. From top to bottom. Actually, I'm going to pinch it in. Why is that there? Oh, I had a pin still left in there from the armhole. I didn't know that. All right. Top, bottom. There you are. And so I got it on this side. Like that. Take that one out. Come here, you. Just this one. Oops. And the top one is there. So that should be my 8 inches. And there to there. Yes, ma'am. It surely is. All right. That's the point there. So what I'm doing on is the same thing on the inside that I did on the outside. I've marked my top and bottom. Okay, mark the top and bottom. And mark the center. And the center is going to be 3/4 of an inch. And measure that. Now the tricky part about this is you want to hold it parallel so that you can really make sure that it's not like off as far as, has to be the same distance and width of the same. So I've got my 3/4, I've got my pins, and I'm going to go ahead and do this little press. Take those out, trim the excess at the end. The lining goes this way. And where's the top? So now you can see. Of course, this needs to be pressed out too. Once you've done a dart in the back like this, you want to press the dart towards the center back. So for this, when this is done, you want to press this towards the center back. Okay? So that way it butterflies out. Let me put these vertical. That's another way you can do it. You can take the pins and like vertically pin them and stitch the 3/4 inches away from this line. So I could like just draw a line down here, fold it to the inside, and then, just do it. So that's another way also. So this is the 8 inches from here. And right here. Put a pin in there. And I'm putting the pin, the entry spot of the pin. That's where the dart's going to end up. Could be 3/4 also. Makes a smoother dart in the dress. So let's go to this one. All right. So I need that one there to come through there like this. So I know that's where it's at. Don't fuss with me, that silly thing. Okay. All right. There. Hello. Yep, there it is. Got it. Found it. Outside. Like that.